Welcome to Drivetime Exchange. As rubber hits the road, hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Nett Radio, taking you above and beyond.
You talk about a place where the people are carefree living. It is such a place of fun loving, spraying and petting. Tis the land where people don't care if Ash Wednesday fall on Good Friday. Man, they love to struggle in this happy-go-lucky way. It's Blockorama, Fetorama, and just now is Masorama. So the foreigner come for carnival, and he telling himself after he had a ball, Trinidad is nice, Trinidad is a paradise. Mr. Foreigner, in La Trinity, the people have a carnival mentality. Trinidad is nice, Trinidad is a paradise. They are not serious, very few conscious, so I cannot agree with my own chorus. Trinidad is nice, Trinidad is a paradise. But I hear some people talking about Revolution Day, changes on the way. They're born in a land, the better parts controlled by the alien. They fill the pockets of Portuguese, Chinese and Syrians. Trinidadians is who should own land. Now is the time to make the land their possession, but their sense of taste could just trace to all them fancy showcase. So the businessman, he blow their mind, and his dollars, them got to find. Trinidad is nice for men like Sabda, Kapilani, Maraj, and Waidi Lima. Trinidad is nice, Trinidad is a paradise. Business expanding, more banks they billing, so is the capitalists and them who should sing. Trinidad is nice, Trinidad is a paradise. And like the slave masters want to bring back the whip, and the chorus singing like they on a trip. Trinidad is nice, Trinidad is a paradise.
And with that, of course, we are going to invite each and every one of you for being here with us on your Era TT Radio, taking you above and beyond the heartbeat of the Caribbean. This is where we invite you inside of the Drivetime Exchange. Remember, Monday to Thursday, we're here inside of the Drivetime Exchange with our journalist extraordinaire himself, Mr. Tony Fraser. Tony, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon to you, Charlo. How is life?
I wouldn't complain too much.
All right. Well, that's good.
I'm working along with whatever comes my way.
Wonderful. I see you pull one from the 1980s, boy, Brother Valentino.
Yes.
Is Trinidad still nice?
For some people, I guess.
All right. Okay, so we're entering into a nice matter this afternoon. Nice. The lawyers use that word in a certain kind of way. I am not a lawyer, so I'm not using it in that manner. But we have two lawyers this afternoon with us, two persons who have been in the Senate over a period of time, and the discussion, quite interesting one, the whole business of the Prime Minister's pension bill. It was passed in the House. The PNM, the opposition, did not vote in it. I heard a statement this afternoon from the leader of the opposition to the effect that they did not want to dignify it, I suppose. Not her word, my word intersected there. And it has become quite an issue. The whole business of The pension plan, as that was outlined by that has been in the law for some time to come, and sometime in the past, sorry, which allows the prime minister, once he or she sits in office, um, there's a little bit of a cynical view of it, sits in office for 5 seconds, pension for the rest of his or her life. And therefore, the UNC has been attempting, uh, got it passed in the House, as I said, the legislation to allow for pensions to be or somebody performing the role of prime minister over a period of time. I think it's graded over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, etc., etc. And there has been quite a lot of antagonism expressed about it, especially over the last couple of days with regard to spokespersons for the UNC indicating that there have been threats and attempts at intimidation against independent senators. And indeed, the question has been raised as to whether the independent senators are truly independent. But I don't want to put too much of my own interpretation into it. An interesting statement has been issued by the president of the Senate, Wade Mark, and I want to read some of it for our listeners so they get a sense of what we are talking about. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to skip out some parts, but hopefully the important parts will set the stage for the discussion. President of the Senate, Wade Mark, condemned what he described as harassment and intimidation directed at independent senators, saying such actions undermine parliamentary democracy and will not be tolerated. Speaking during Monday's sit-in, Mark issued a pointed rebuke to those targeting members of the upper house over their votes, particularly ahead of the debate on the controversial Prime Minister's pension bill amendment. When words, quote, when words or actions cross the line into harassment, intimidation, or attempts to shame senators for how they vote or pressures them to vote in a particular way, that is something entirely different and it will not be tolerated. Mark said such actions strike at the very heart of parliamentary democracy and may constitute a serious breach of privilege. He said the senators have a right to speak and vote freely, guided by conscience and without due influence. Without a part there, let this serve as a clear warning to all, Mark said. This House and certainly this chair will act firmly to protect the privileges, rights, and immunities of the Senate collectively and each senator individually. That protection will be exercised to the full extent of the Senate's authority, etc., etc., etc. And if necessary, with the appropriate avenues for redress will be pursued without hesitation. And he goes on to a whole lot more in the statement. But I think our listeners and viewers would have got the sense of what transpired and the reaction of the president of the Senate. Well, we have with us a former president of the Senate, Timothy Hammersmith, who's an attorney at law. And he sat in that government of 2010 when there was a coalition of interests amongst the parties. They call themselves the People's Partnership, and they were in government for 5 years. Welcome to the program, sir. So you got to take off your speaker is off. You need to put it on.
Put on your microphone.
Is that okay?
Right.
Yes.
All right. Thanks very much, Tony. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to this discussion.
All right. And we also have Hazel Thompson Ai, who was also a senator, an independent senator, up to quite recently, and a senator who says her piece, who vex loss. And I'm happy to have her here this afternoon. I'll be even happier if she gives us, our viewers, our listeners, a sense of what she looks like. So if you can, oh, wonderful! There you are, wonderful. Welcome to the program. He's
She has to
Your
unmute
mic is
herself.
muted also. You have to unmute your mic.
unmute your microphone.
All right.
Good.
Now you can see and hear me.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And I like your black and white outfit. Thanks for agreeing.
Thank you.
And agreeing at the last moment in the heat of the matter, as it were. You heard the introduction and you heard the statement that has been issued, something of the statement, not all of it, issued by the President of the Senate, Wade Mark. So let us get this thing going. First of all, I am sure that the two former senators are fully aware that this is not an isolated occasion. This is something that has happened over decades, really. One party, the other party, contending about the independent senators. It has reached, I remember one time, the parties they had individual spokespersons who would go and attempt to persuade the senators, the independents, to vote for them or vote against, as the case may be. This is a very different story about intimidation and antagonism and all of that. And President Wade Mark has captured it. I was a little bit surprised, actually. He being solidly, and I think that puts even greater weight behind it, because he has been over the decades a solid UNC supporter, served in the Senate for a long, long time, was Speaker of the House at one point in time. So let me start off with ladies first. Hazel Thompson, your first response to this contention and claim by the public relations officer of the UNC.
Nonsensical. One word, nonsensical. If you have to assess a person as an independent senator, one should, I would say, examine all aspects of the person's work. Yes? In addition to speaking on bills, an independent senator sits on various committees of parliament. I sat on 3 committees. You ask questions of ministers, you bring motions to parliament, you bring matters on the motion for adjournment of parliament, you sit on joint committees to review legislation. All of these provide an opportunity to support or undermine, as they would say, the work of the government. So to judge a senator by the number of times he or she has voted with the government really makes no sense to me. You see, that vote might have come after you have not only studied the legislation, but you have made recommendations for the improvement, having regard to what the law says on the issue. So you're not just coming blind and say whatever the government wants, the government gets. So I don't think that is a way of, first of all, judging the senator's work or the senator's mindset in terms of how many times. So, I think that when I review some of the times that I've come to the parliament and said, look, the age of criminal responsibility is too low. You ought to have laws on sexual harassment. You're not obeying the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And I remember once when I was going to and fro with the Minister of Foreign Affairs on one of the issues dealing with children, migrant children. You know what the opposition senator in front of me was saying? PNM fighting PNM. No, really? I mean, it's as though you're in primary school sometime or infant school, the level of thinking. So when I look back and judge myself, I can't see that is a fair comment or a fair way of judging my performance in the parliament. I have not been ever a person who is fearless, who would not speak out and say something is wrong when something is, is in fact wrong. I remember calling the minister to task about the lack of enforcement at carnival time of the indecent way. I said I call out all the different acts of parliament we have dealing with the indecency of way and behavior at carnival time. And the Minister of National Security say, well, the police have to be trained to recognize what is indecent. Really? What is indecency? So sometimes you really are very frustrated. Another time I had to call the minister of education to tell him, well, you have no jurisdiction over children over 16 years, according to the Education Act, to send the girls to Milat, And, there are so many times when you have, I was reporting in the press as telling the Minister of Finance, he should apologize to the Auditor General. So in light of that, how can you say that we are not independent, that I am not independent? I could go on about instances when you really have to call ministers to account and you have said, this is not right. Why don't you do things this way? Because in the final analysis, we want the best laws in our statute books. So whatever is happening in the parliament, we scrutinize very carefully. We see sometimes the negative comments in the chat, but we have to just throw that behind us and say, this education system is really lacking in a lot of things. And one of the things it's lacking on is to being able to read and write and understand what is going on, to be able to analyze. So there's much that we need to do to educate not only the parliamentarian, but members of the public as well. Because such a description of us is totally unfair, uncalled for, and really it makes no sense when you examine the record of the work and how we perform. You have to understand what we're doing, what we're about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Timothy Hamel-Smith, as I said, was not merely a senator, but he was president of the Senate in that period, 2010 to 2015. And let me ask you, Timothy, to start off by defining, and I know that the phrase independent senator or the description independent senator is said not to be in the Constitution. But how do you define an independent senator?
Well, I think the word independent senator is it's not in the Constitution, but it's a good description. It's held sway for many, many years. When you talk about independent senators, you know exactly the group of senators you're referring to are the senators appointed by the president in her own discretion. So I think it's a good handle, quite frankly. I think it's suitable. One of the things you will notice over the years that whenever there is legislation that is in the public domain, there's a lot of talk on either side of the divide. People tend to look to the independent senators almost, in their words, to save the country because of some provision that is being introduced. So they are important part of I think, the parliament, and they serve a very important purpose.
Okay. Sorry, before you go on, there is another description of the senators who are not aligned to one or the other party. That is the independent Senate bench. Is there, well, maybe I should also ask Hazel Romsnahi, is there such a creature, such an institution amongst the independent senators, as far as you are aware?
Yeah, I think when we talk about independent senators, it is not only independent as an individual, but they should be independent from each other. I think that is what would be expected. In other words, they shouldn't be caucusing to say, hey, fellas, because that's what the other two parties they will have a caucus and say, this is how we're voting on this, and we will nominate speakers. There is a perhaps the most senior senator on the independent bench would tend to be a point at which people could gather, because somebody needs to pass out information. So, there is that role to be played, but the role isn't one to try and influence other independent senators as to how they should vote or act or whatever. So
So
they
there
should
is
not
no
only
group
be independent,
action.
but independent of each other.
Yeah, so there is no group action, or there should not be
They
any
should
group
not.
action.
Sure.
In this. Okay, so
No,
your
we don't say
time.
nobody says you have to vote so or you have to vote so. So sometimes, I mean, even if you look now, you will see some vote yes, some vote no, and some vote and saying, that they're not on either side, you see.
Mhm. Has there been a group organization? Same question I'm putting, or I've put to Timothy Hamel-Smith. Has there been group action in the Senate in your period of time being in the Senate?
When you say group action,
Group action amongst the independent senators, that you have come together, the individuals have come together as a group and say we are going to vote XYZ on a particular bill.
no, really and truly, that doesn't happen. We actually have to wait to see how the person next to you sitting is going to, what you might ask if you are speaking on the bill, but not how you're voting or anything like that.
Okay.
The coordinator now, he gathers, he comes around and he would ask, are you speaking on the bill? And we might, say yes, no, no, and he makes a list. He would also say, well, who's going first, second, third? He would give us that list, and then he would pass that to the presiding officer.
Okay. In your time as here, were there efforts by the political parties, well, the government and the opposition, not so much the political parties, to influence the independent senators to a position?
Honestly, I mean, sometimes you may have a relationship with somebody and they might say, I hope you're voting for the bill, and I might just laugh. I don't say before how I'm going or whatever. But so I remember once somebody said, you vote or you abstain. I said, go and read Hansard. So really and truly,
So I am talking about deliberate institutional action on the part of the government or the opposition to come to the bench, quote unquote. Sorry, I shouldn't say bench, but come to the independents and say you should vote in a particular way because of XYZ.
no.
If I may say this, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Timothy.
Yeah, if I may say this, Tony, I've never heard anybody suggesting that whether it's opposition or government coming to senators, getting them to vote a certain way. I have heard occasions where they wanted to make representation as a body in order for them to understand a particular bill and the impact of it and the context in which it appears, as opposed to trying to persuade them. It was an informational instance. I've heard of that. I haven't participated in it, and I can't vouch for whether it took place or not. But that type of approach I've heard from both ends, both government and opposition, have used that opportunity. And before the bill is actually laid, because they feel there's some issues that perhaps need to be considered.
Well, it has been reported on those particular matters, and not in any clandestine way, but that the group of independents have met with a minister, etc., as you indicate, to get a deeper appreciation of what the proposed legislation is all about. Somebody comes in and says his or her piece, and then he leaves the place, and it's up to the individuals to make their own determination about it. But let me ask you, in your role as president of the Senate, did you discern And sometimes, as the Calypsonian has said, you have to look beneath the surface. Did you ever discern there was, a political position, a party political position being taken by a group of senators? And I say that remembering what CLR James has said, that if you're talking about politics and you don't have and you tell me that you don't have a political position, you're trying to fool me in far better language than that. But the meaning is that yes, politics is that's what the whole thing is all about. But it's a very different thing for the group of senators, the individual senators. I must keep that word group out of my mouth. Taking a political position one way or the other. Did you ever discern that from the chair?
No, I haven't seen a party alignment, if that's what you're referring to. What I think, triggered, if you like, this impasse that we're talking about. In the committee stage, it appears that all the independent senators voted against a particular phrase that was being put forward as to how you actually word a section, as it were. And that's just my take on it. I don't have the full particulars of that. So certainly if you ask in my time, I have never seen an instance where that has happened. Having said that, I was a much more interfering Senate president. At that point, you're really sitting as the chairman. And because of my background, I felt I took a broad width in terms of my intervention. So I would hear somebody say something, I would hear the government reply, and I'm saying, there is a gap somewhere. I don't think either of you are getting it right. I think if you worded it differently, each of you will find it satisfying your concern. Even though I am saying it, I'm saying I did manage it this way. I don't recall an instance.
Is that hopeful with party politics on edge? That you can, in my reporting over 40 years, I have never seen that kind of, cohesion. An agreement on anything.
My chairmanship of that committee. I have another thing to say on that. It is absolutely absurd that in the year 2025, with the technology that we have that they should have a committee of the whole house as we do. It is totally absurd. I was aghast, and I tried to make changes to it, because the truth is, maybe 5 or 6 senators are interested in the actual wording of the bill. The others are there to say yay or nay or whatever. Yeah. And you have people come in there, apply their minds to this. I remember Mr. Prescott was one who always, was on top of things. But that's not how it should take place. Altogether, a silly notion. You should the 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever it is, representative, of course, of the voting strengths in the Senate, should be in a room with a screen in front of them. The legislation should, of course, be on the screen. And you have there a secretary who, as somebody stands up and says, look, I think in line 3, section 9, I would like to see these words. And they put it in. And then you're looking at it and you see it in context. Try to imagine that happening in the Senate, where somebody stands up and says, section 34, line 12, I would like to see. Can you imagine that in your mind? And we are passing legislation that affects the entire country. It is absolutely absurd.
And somebody saying, move the and from a particular place to another place. Yeah. It's crazy.
That should not be happening in the 21st century. And I did try, Jackie Sampson Nigel was then the clerk of the House. And I said, Jackie, why can't we could make it. What we need is we need special, to be able to do what I wanted to achieve, we needed special software that is deliberately done. And we actually explored this. We found it in Nova Scotia. And we said, I think Cabinet was on the verge of purchasing this software so that it's not only in the Senate. Can you just think about how a bill is prepared? Somebody comes up with some policies. They tell the parliamentary counsel, who is a really terrific person. I have a lot of admiration for him. It's a rare science. Not any lawyer could stand up there, make write law. And he so that he starts with a framework of a bill, and then it goes from one ministry to another ministry, ultimately to the cabinet. And each time they are preparing this thing over and over. But if you had this software, not only would you see the start, you would see the changes marked, red, then yellow, then green, then purple. And you will see how this moved in all its stages. That's what certainly I, as a lawyer working in my particular environment, that's how we work. We don't, I remember asking, I said I wanted a markup. I asked because they must have, nobody could pass amendments to legislation without a markup to see what was before and what we're putting in now. They had to do it. They present us with a final document. I wanted to see what you inserted, to see it in context, because you can't read legislation in a vacuum. And do you know what they presented to me? I mean, I was astonished and nearly fell off my chair. So what they had done is actually cut and paste. They had the old legislation, they cut out a piece with a scissors, stuck it over something and had new lettering in it. And all this is done in software. I mean, I've been using it for 20 years now. Not I don't talk about, today. Yeah. I mean, we're far past that stage. We've much more improved. And that Trinidad and Tobago should be, actually Barbados bought, they couldn't afford the full, it was not cheap. They couldn't afford the whole package, but they have it. For certain elements of it. And we need to do that, becoming in the 21st century, creating law, as important as that is, a bind, a nation. And you do it by, women fancy, as far as I'm concerned.
Let me ask Hazel Thompson, if you witnessed party politicking amongst the senators, the independents that is, in the Senate in your period of time? Were there senators who ostensibly and sometimes without shame, I'm going to the extreme, without shame, support one political party or the other, whether government or opposition? I'm sorry, I asked that because that is the suggestion that has come from the UNC spokesperson, who has put out the statement to get the speaker to not the speaker, the president to respond.
Well, I've heard it too. I've heard it too. But the evidence, really, you can't tell what is in people's hearts. You really can't tell. So it's only, a guess that you're making. And I have not seen, to be able to say, yes, this one is definitely that way. Because I have seen people start off with one position and change to another position and make suggestions and so on. So I think that, to me, the impression I have is that people are being sore losers when they don't get their way. I think what happens a lot is that people have different areas of expertise. So if there's something dealing like with children's law, they're looking out for Hazel to talk on that. Social legislation, Hazel, what, you're talking on this kind of. I have nothing to say. I don't know much about that area. That is your area, whatever somebody might suggest. And I might say, yes, this is something I've prepared to speak on, or not today. And even across the divide, people have said, are you speaking today? Can't you be persuaded to speak today? Because some people actually, they like to hear me speak. So they want to hear my views on something. And most times I will speak on a bill. But I never feel that, what you're suggesting, that it happens in the way of some public perception. People, as I say, when I was confronting the minister, it was therefore dear Avery Brown, and they said, PNM fighting PNM, because I was arguing that it was wrong. I said, this is an issue I've raised in my committee with the Minister of Education, because I believe, really and truly, there are certain things that should not be happening.
Yeah.
But people can say, but you have to be thick-skinned, because sometimes it's so you feel a sense of unfairness that people are saying things that really are unfair to you. And, you just shrug your shoulders and say, look, the heck with them, yes? Let them think what they want.
Zafi them.
Yes, Zafi. You remind me of my
Good
dear
Creole.
mother. My dear mother would have said that, But I've already lost sleep preparing to come and talk on your bill. I'm not going to lose sleep thinking about what people have said about me. I think it's better use of my life.
Timothy Hammersmith, there is a view, and I've heard it come from independent senators, that there is an area, there is a point beyond which independent senators should not go in opposing a government bill, motion, etc. And the line to the effect is that nobody elect you fellas. And therefore, you have to give room to the government who has been elected by the majority to govern. I am sure that you've heard that already.
Well, I certainly
perhaps
have.
even firsthand.
Yeah, and I would say to you that we should not discount public perception. I mean, that's a reality, and you can't get away from it. It may not be right, but people have a point of view, and you can't discount it altogether. The truth is that, as I've said, I think that the way in which we point independent senators, it was a great introduction into the Constitution. It was a check and balance that many people don't have, that really served us well, or can serve us well. Unfortunately, the public perception grows when, in fact, you feel that a president has been appointed, by really the prime minister, and these things unfold. I would much prefer, from a constitutional perspective, to have a president whose role was not more ceremonial. We're paying our president a significant amount of money. I think the president ought to have a substantive role. And therefore, I believe that the president should be elected and not really appointed. I mean, we have a mama guy thing saying they were elected by the Electoral College. But I'm not talking about an executive president who therefore you have a prime minister and an executive president. I'm talking about a president, from my perspective, take on the role as chair of a fiscal council, and therefore have the qualifications to be a member of a fiscal council. You can have all this, statute saying what those qualifications are, and have the public vote for that president. So now, the checks and balances in every constitution are important. Our independent institutions are vital. There's no successful country without independent institutions.
Okay.
And, I think that we need more rather than less. And so can you imagine if you had an elected president not belonging to a political party who had to have qualifications to sit on a fiscal council, and then that person would now be appointing your independent senators, would be appointing the chairman of commission, would be making all the appointments they now make. But more than that, would have a substantive job as chair of the fiscal council. And more than that, what I would like to see, because you need to get participation from society to really make them feel that, particularly when you go through challenging times like now, that many streams of voices are being taken into account. And so I believe that, our civil society, whether it's academia, whether it's business, whether it's labor unions, whether it's NGOs, that should all have an opportunity to put forward candidates who meet the qualifications to sit on a fiscal council.
All right. So we're going to come back to the discussion. We're going to come back to that in a moment, because you talk about the president, and part of the criticism that has come from the UNC camp verges on, in fact, it's more than verges on, incorporates the president in it, because the claim is that the president is political, and therefore the president appoints all of these politicians who are faithful to the opposition party in this instance. But Sir Charles, let's take a quick break, inform our listeners and our participants something about this new electronic online station. We have to do a little bit of commercials in all of this, right, Chalo?
Congratulations, Tony, on making this deep dive.
All right, hold on, we'll be back shortly.
Join me, Brother David Muhammad, every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio, Powerful Radio. Join me to hear knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio. S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio, the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newerattradio@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now what are you waiting for?
Chinese and Syrians, Trinidadians is who should own land. Now is the time to make.
And of course, yes, you are on TG Era TT Radio. And of course, maybe yes, you can advertise with us. Just give us a call, right? 299-5156. It's 299-5156. And of course, maybe you can listen to us on newerattradio.com. New Era TT Radio. You can get us on TuneIn, and of course, all your Alexa and Google devices, your smart devices, you can get us there. You can also pick us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where you are right now also. And in the morning, you can get us on M1E TV, where we stream between 6 and 8 a.m. for our breakfast show on M1E TV, which carries our breakfast show on Amplia, Digicel, Flow, and Tricore. So yeah, there are a number of ways that you can get us. And right now, you're getting us here inside of the Drivetime Exchange with Tony Fraser. So back to you, Tony.
Thank you, Charles. So even techno dunces like myself, you can get onto the station in one way or the other. It's not too difficult, right?
Just put us in the browser, you'll find us.
Good, wonderful.
Timothy, you can be techno dancey when you have to run,
Yeah, they help me out sometimes, and
Okay.
yeah, well, grandchildren really. The children,
Wow.
the children probably think I'm a lost cause, so the grandson will help me out and so on. Yeah,
What?
Timothy Hammersmith has started talking about what we go do. That phrase that goes back into our political history. Who we go put, how we go fix this thing, etc., etc. And it's clearly a political party thing. Political parties get all wild when they feel that they are being blocked in one way or the other. Political parties in government and in opposition. So the question is, how do we begin to Timothy Smith has been talking about constitution reform. Hazel, how do we begin to cure this problem? Remembering what James said, is that if you tell me you don't have a political position, not a political party, but a political position, you're trying to fool me.
Hmm. I am not sure though, because look in the past. We're talking a lot, they put into the public arena that President Kangaloo has been, a member of parliament, a member of the party, and all of that. But what can you say about A&R Robinson? You see, I don't remember, anybody raising it until the end, with the streams into rivers and all of that. But at the time when he became president, I mean, where did he come from? I am not sure how to fix it. If you should just go out into the community, settle some criteria and go out into the community and get candidates and let us vote on them, I am not sure. So I have to think more about that.
Okay. Well, Timothy Hammersmith is the head of a political party, and political parties are the ones who have all kinds of ideas. When they get into power, it's a different story. But I'm sure that Timothy Smith has something to say. I mean, seriously, how political parties are political parties, and they scream and carry on, and they really want to hang on to the power. And to challenge for the power if they're in opposition. And sometimes, most times, the national interest is not at stake, but really the party interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Timothy?
Yeah, so if I could start off with your last words, the national interest. I don't think anybody doubts that we are facing hard times. The oil and gas that we had in the past and that sustained us, and unfortunately, as a result, we did not diversify as we should. If you look around in the world, you will find there was one country that went through fairly similar circumstances to Trinidad and Tobago, and that is New Zealand. A lot of people looking at New Zealand today think that they are always rich in the top four, or whatever. And you look, New Zealand only has 4 million people, which is why I like to use it as a comparator. When we look at 60 million, 200 million, it's out of our league. You can't introduce something from that level of society and bring it into a small country. But if you look at New Zealand in 1981, you know what happened? Oil and gas ran out. You remember we suffered the same thing. 81, 86, things were tough. And one of the things they did a number of things. Their foreign exchange was really at the bottom. Their debt to GDP was blown out of the water. Oil and gas was just not there anymore. It had evaporated, if you like. And one of the things that New Zealand did, and if you look at New Zealand today, all the world indices that you hear in relation to governance, they are in the top 4. It is that kind of country they managed to create. And if you look at what they did in 81, it is almost a mirror image and lessons to be learned for Trinidad and Tobago. So they created fiscal responsibility legislation. In other words, you had somebody with oversight to make sure that you don't get overspending. Yes, it's one thing to spend because you want to grow your economy, and sometimes you do need to borrow to achieve that. But you also have a payday coming. There's debt being created. So they brought in fiscal responsibility legislation with a fiscal council. They brought in, just around that time, they changed their electoral system. They had a mixed form of first past the post and PR, proportional representation. They came down to a single house. And here's where, if you read, they felt a small country, 4 million people. At the time they might have been 3 point something. 2 houses for us, that's good for the UK. You know, they have 600 people in their lower house and how many ever in the upper house. But we are too small to allow for that duplication, really. And we need to create a single house, which is why I would say I would like to see a single house. I would like to see independent senators, and I use that phrase even for that single house, having the same leverage, if I might call it that, in terms of voting power. So that when it comes to something with a 3/5 majority, you need X percentage of independent senators supporting it. But most important, you need to have independent institutions. One of the things we said, and it was in, wouldn't like to say repeated, but it was repeated. Our proposal regarding to fixing the civil service was repeated in, Terry Farrell's group. He wasn't the leader of it, but I remember Terry because we've had many discussions around this when he was in the EADB, and I made presentations there. And they said, I think the first time they realized you don't need a constitutional majority in order to change your civil service. You could do it because there's a section that allows you to require the commission delegate their duty. See, up to that time, and you would have heard a lot of people say, oh, the commissions are a waste of time, let's do away with them. And Mr. Manning had that trend of thought himself. And I remember telling the EADB when I made my presentation, you would be asking Dr. Rowley to commit political suicide to remove the commissions. And I was told, hey, our duty is to present what we think best, not to worry about their politics. I said, hey, we live in a real world. You know what I mean?
It came true. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, folks, I want to thank you very much for coming in.
If
You have
I may
a last statement, sure it. We must have the woman saying the last word, of course, or could we say here?
Want to tell Timothy, don't forget to tell everybody that New Zealand removed the Privy Council as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
And I have no problem with that. We can have that for another discussion.
And maybe we'll come together again to talk about it. I feel that the political parties are the problems, but this is not my platform. This is your platform. Thank you very much for talking with us.
That's why I've never joined any of them.
Yes,
So, Chalo, we cross over.
A little hope in her life, Tony.
Yeah. Chalo, so we cross over and wait for our other guests to get into the second part of the program, which is a very interesting part as far as I'm concerned. 130 years, the Gloucester Lodge Moravian School, primary school, is celebrating this year. And I find that intriguing, and I can't put my mind back 130 years to have had a school to cater for small children growing up, etc., in a not too privileged part of the city, behind the bridge.
Sir Hugh Woodin was a Moravian, I believe.
Okay, yeah, Moravian or Wesleyan or something like that. Whatever.
They were connected.
Something like that.
That church there on Duke Street.
Yeah.
Maybe where you're referring to, one of Duke and
Well, our guest is
No,
here,
that's
so
Road, I think it is.
Right.
so
Thank you very much, folks.
thank you very much, people, for coming.
And notice how you say they are interesting discussion. Like if ours wasn't a gone.
Very interesting yours was. Very interesting.
You see, give her the last word, see what's happening.
Yeah, you see what I mean? You see what I mean? All right.
Yeah, people, we're coming back with our next guest.
Thanks, Tony.
My island is the only place I know where people friendly and the pace of living slow. Women pretty and immense and tall, a peaceful place where problems are small. Nowhere else you will see every race living in harmony. African together, right here. Indian together, right here. Chinese together, right here. White man together, right here. My country Trinidad, for me to live here I must be mad. My island is the only place to be. All year long is happy activity. The Pagua, Carnival and Jose, Independence and Labor Day. Diwali is something to see. The faith that lights up a great country. Baptist together, right here. Hindu together, right here. Muslim together, right here. Christian together, right here. My country Trinidad, for me to live here I must be mad.
And of course, yes, it is my island, Trinidad and Tobago, as we're inside the second segment here of the Drive Time Exchange with Tony Fraser. And Tony, yes, we have a guest inside, both of them.
Yep. And as indicated, I find this subject very interesting, although I got buffed by the last one of the last guests who said that me talking about this one being interesting, meaning that their session wasn't interested. Of course, that's wrong. This is a human interest story, and we reporters, we get very excited when we hear about a human interest story rather than politics. But what we talked about in that first session, seriously, is a very important subject. So we come now to this thing. I saw a report in the Trinidad Guardian written by a man called Otto Carrington, who is a journalist with the Trinidad Guardian, about the school being 130 years old, Moravian faith. And I know very little about the Moravian faith, so part of what we have to do this afternoon is to educate people like myself and others about the Moravian faith. So we are very happy to have with us the principal of that school. She doesn't go back 130 years, but nevertheless, she's a principal today. It's called Gloucester Lodge Moravian Primary School. Welcome to the program, and her name is Claudette Governor, Miss Claudette Governor. Welcome to the program, and thanks for accepting our invitation to come and chat about it.
Most honored. Thank you for accepting me.
All right, and my colleague Otto Carrington, who is a student, a past student of the school, and therefore in a position to talk about it. Just for a little bit of geography lesson, people may not even know where Gloucester Lodge Road is. If you're coming from Belmont, along Belmont Circular Road, It's right at it's the last street before you get into Observatory Street. If you can't go straight along to the hospital anymore, but it starts. I don't know where it starts and finishes. I'm talking about the Circular Road now, right at the corner by the hospital, and wends its way through Belmont up to the Circular Road by the Savannah, the police station, etc., etc. So the school is situated right at the bottom of the hill. What the second or third building from the Circular Road and goes up into the hill. I have never gone beyond too far up inside of that road. I don't know for what reason or the other. So we have the principal and we have a former student, Otto Carrington. Otto, thanks for coming into the program this afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago, and definitely it's a pleasure. Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. It's definitely a pleasure to be here, Mr. Fraser.
Wonderful. So, Ms. Governor, your responsibility is to inform and educate all of us. First about the Moravian faith and the establishment of the school 130 years ago. What purpose did it serve? Nearly, well, not nearly, all of the religions organizations in Trinidad and Tobago had somebody or some institution behind it. In fact, a whole country, a whole civilization behind it. Tell us about the Moravian school and the Moravian feast coming to Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, the Moravian started in Germany. It was John Huss. He was a missionary. It is believed that Moravians were the first set of Protestants from the Catholic Church. And we started in Germany, and John Huss was actually burnt at the stake for trying to break away from this religion. And what happened, they were rescued, the Moravians were actually rescued by a gentleman called Count Zinzendorf in Germany. He hid them for a while so that they can continue the faith. And the Moravian has a symbol that is, it is called Unitas Fratrum. That's unity of the brethren. And that is how we actually started the formation of it.
Was the faith in Trinidad started by any particular group, and for what purpose?
It was started by John Hamilton. He first went to Tobago and then to Trinidad. John Montgomery, on the invitation of a gentleman, John Hamilton, to the plantations. So he came to educate slaves, to preach. He came as missionaries, actually, to preach the word of God and to educate the slaves at the time. Okay. Hence we had the birth of, because of the plantations. I understand that Laventille was also a plantation back in that time. Hence they started the Rose Hill Moravian Church back in 1890.
Mm-hmm. So, is Moravian the name of a town, a city, a place in Germany?
A place in Germany. It's Moravia, and the people who came out of there, so they call them Moravians. Mm-hmm. And it was widespread. They widespread throughout the Caribbean.
Okay. So, how do you account for it being a very small, and I'm making some assumptions here without numbers or real inside information, but it seems to me that it's a relatively small religious grouping, small but not unimportant. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's in terms of numbers, it's spread and so on.
Actually, why is that so? In Trinidad.
Okay.
Because I believe the number of churches that came up after, all the Presbyterians, the Anglicans, everybody that came, I believe, so it's downsized actually in Trinidad. I only believe there were only 2 sets at the time. Back in that time, they were in Lancenor and in Port of Spain. But in Tobago, we have 8 congregations, and in other parts of our province in the Caribbean, there are a lot of churches, especially Barbados and Antigua. They have large numbers. Mm-hmm. So,
what peculiarities of the church here in Trinidad, the Moravian faith, that is?
Say that again.
Peculiar, dispositions, or what's it? Or the religious pursuit, the faith, that kind of thing. What is peculiar about the Moravian faith? Does it distinguish itself, say, from Catholicism or the Anglican Church, or Hindus and non-Christian churches?
Same as the Christian churches. We follow the same teachings most times, but we believe that Christ is the head of our church, and we follow the teachings accordingly. But there is nothing rather different, and I guess that is why it's getting to be such small in number, because people are branching off to the other churches. Although most people would have started in the Moravian church, but they are branching off to the other faiths.
Why is that?
Change, I guess. And I just guess people want new, and some people believe that they will get better in the other churches.
Is it that your theology is not as attractive to see young people as the others?
It is very attractive, because we still put out the ministers there. We are one of the set of people that will still educate. We pay the churches. The people who go to study do not have to pay for themselves. They are paid for by the Moravian Church if you go to study. So I believe that we still hold it strong, but as young people come up, they want to do their own thing. They move away from what their parents would have taught them.
Is it closely aligned with, say, smaller congregations like the Methodists and the Pentecostals?
Closely aligned with
big now.
Because what I know for fact is that when we go to study, we study with the same. The Methodists, the Anglicans, they all go to the same college to study.
Right.
Jamaica, yes.
Otto Carrington, is it that you came from a family of Moravians? How come you went to a Moravian school?
Mr. Fraser, interesting question. Well, my grandparents were Moravians.
Incidentally, Mr. Fraser died a long time ago. He left two behind. We settle that.
Well, all right. Well, for me, my family, my grandparents were Moravians, and we started going. I same history that Mr. Governor just explained. I am well aware of that, because we were taught that in Sunday school. I was confirmed in Moravian. I haven't been in the church halls for a while. I have to get some licks for that, but
His governor is taking note of that.
But definitely, it's because it's my entire family were Moravians, so that hence the reason why. And then my family was heavily involved in Gloucester Lodge, because I didn't live too far from there, Mr. Fraser. So the thing about it is that I lived walking distance from the school, and my uncle taught at that school as well.
Right.
And if you look at it, my aunts and uncles, my generation, and then the children off of my generation actually went to school there. So you're talking about 3 to 4 generations going to school there, and also going to church at the Rosehill Moravian Church. And we also did Memorial Moravian Church. And I know we would have also visited Lansdowne as well at a point there, because my uncle also taught at the Lansdowne Moravian School as well. So yes, so that is my connection to the Moravian.
Did you get singled out, Chalo?
I think Otto, do you have something on that is feeding back there?
Yeah.
No, I think it's the room I'm in. It's a bit hollow.
Okay.
But
Because
it's,
we can. When you're off, you mute your microphone when you're off. Right. So go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if Otto, did you get teased? Boys are sometimes criminal in their behavior. That's a strong word. I remember having to go to Sunday school from Belmont on Sunday afternoon at 2:00, and fellas playing cricket and football in the road, and they say, "Look, Miss Fraser's daughter coming to go to church," and so on. So boys tease each other and so on. Did you get teased for belonging to such a minority faith?
Well, to be honest, I hope my audio is better. I changed rooms. To be honest, a lot of people did not know about what is a Moravian, to be honest. And after leaving Gloucester, I went to a Catholic school, which is now St. Francis College, which was Belmont Intermediate. Belmont boys are secondary. So
we call it intermediate in those days.
Yes, in Belmont Intermediate, as it's famously known. And so a lot of people did not know about the religion, but it doesn't, as Ms. Governor said correctly, it doesn't differentiate from the theological matters, because Jesus Christ is at the forefront as of the religion, and also we follow the same teachings. Let me correct that. We follow the principles of most of the teachings.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask Ms. Governor as to whether the road, the Gloucester Lodge Road, is in any way connected to the school and the church.
Well, now that the school is built there, I believe that is why they named it the Gloucester Lodge School, the Gloucester Lodge, because of the streets it's on.
Okay,
but it's
so
closely connected. We join with the Rose Hill Moravian to do any worship. Pastor, well, we have a Christian ed. She comes in and does a Christian education worship once a week. And we have a close working relation with the church.
So the Gloucester Lodge came first, and the school was named after the street, the area. Yes, not the other way around.
No.
All right. Tell us, over the years, over the decades, really, I mean, first of all, the building, and I know there is talk about the building not meeting the requirements of the time. Was that the original building, or was it something else that existed?
To answer that, I can ask Miss. Remember, I told you about the female teacher, Miss Innes is there. She can answer that because she was a student, and she will tell you about the changes that went through. Because from a student, she went to becoming a teacher.
All right, so she's here. Reverend Catherine. That's her name.
Miss Innes, Oliver
Innes.
Yes.
Oliver Innes. Okay, Oliver Innes. We are not seeing you, so come up on camera so we can see you. Yeah, go ahead. We've seen some fancy images. I suppose those are students and so on, but we would love to see your face so we know who we are talking with. There she is.
Hello, good evening.
Right, and give our listeners and viewers your full name and rank, as it were, meaning your teacher excel.
Yes.
Sorry, say that again.
My name is Wilma Oliveri Innes.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
I was previously, as a student, I was Wilma Oliver. I started Gloucester Lodge at 8 years old. And yes, the building that is there now, I don't think that was the original building. As I've heard from some past teachers, it was a wooden school before.
Okay.
But I started Gloucester Lodge in 1981 to 85, and that building there now is the original building that I know.
Okay.
Since coming back as a teacher, there's an annex where we have the library and the toilets and stuff that was built by Mr. Roll Wright. The Roll Wright wing actually was built by Mr. Roll Wright, a past principal in the 90s, I think 1990.
Okay. What of the cohort of students who are attracted to the school? Is it only members of the religious organization, or do you get your students from far and wide?
Actually, most of the students are from far and wide because there are hardly any Moravians in Trinidad. Well, I think, because I'm spiritual Baptist, and most of the teachers there now are not Moravians. This is one of our first. This is the first Moravian principal that I know of. No, not the first, the second, and most of it's just the the area around the area around that we get our children from, not from the religion, but there are not a lot of Moravians in Trinidad, I suppose.
Yeah. Let me ask a difficult question of the principal. Well, it may not be a difficult question, in fact. Is it that the school and the face, the Moravian face, attract black people?
I would say that because of
sorry, just let me make myself clear. I don't say that in any derogatory way. I'm just trying to understand.
Right now I behave like children. I don't see anything. I don't see color. What happens? I believe it because of where we are located.
Okay.
I believe it's the location. And I will believe it will continue to attract the black people because of how we started. Like I said, we came to educate slaves. And because of areas that it would have been set up, where the churches are set up, those are the people that would have been inhabiting the areas at the time.
And of course, if you have a stronghold in Tobago, that makes it even more so, given the kind of population that grew up in Tobago. Let's turn to the school now, and the school, its achievements over the period of time. I know I interviewed Joey Lewis once up in Hermitage Road, and he told me that he went to the school. He said he wasn't a very good student, but he went to the school. He wanted to come outside and play music. The kind of achievement that the school has achieved over the period of time. And do you operate on the same basis as, say, the Anglicans and the Catholics and the Presbyterians, etc., that the government lends support to the teaching staff, whatever the balance is? Give us an appreciation of that.
Yes, we are a government-assisted school, but the government takes care of the school as well as pay the teachers, right? But the Moravian the board is to decide the people that come to the school. We try our best to focus on the all-round student, where we produce athletics as well as scholars, and that has been happening. I know for sure that we have had some politicians, doctors, lawyers coming through the school. And what we have started I know it has been happening. What we normally do is with
and a senior journalist also, right?
Oh, yes.
Apart from the doctors and
right? What we do is have them come back to speak to the children at graduation, or normally have them come to speak when we have World Reading Day, reading aloud. Because we had the mayor at one time, that was Mr. Moravian. He was there to do the reading with us when we have the National Read Aloud Day. So these are things we bring these people back so that the children can see how far they can go and not just limit themselves to basic things.
What of the environment of the school? And Otto can also come in on this question. We see a lot of negatives about our schools these days, primary schools, secondary schools, and so on and so on, and children, we weren't saints in my time in school, but we didn't have guns, we didn't have knives and so on. You vex with somebody and you all fight it out during recess, and after recess you're done with that and so on. But how is the school dealing in that way? Because the environment, the students come from everywhere. There is not a special environment for Catholics and Anglicans and Moravians and so on. How are you doing?
I think that's the scary part, because everybody, all of a sudden, is afraid of Belmont. But the area where the school is not, we don't actually have those things impacting the school. Not that sort of crime, only just that was kind of. I'm getting an echo. But that was it. What I can say is that because of how the society has changed, when you try to speak to a child and correcting them, the quickest thing they want to tell you is that they're going to bring their uncle with who and bring their relative. And this is the kind of things we have to deal with. So what has been happening lately is that the government has seen it fit to bring into the school the special education the student support services in the form of the social worker, the guidance counselor, special education teacher. So these people come, and we also have a great, excellent, I must say, working relationship with the community police. So that they come, they will speak to the children, and we try to nip things in the bud, so to speak. We try our best in the area because although the school might not be impacted, the children are because of where they come from.
Mm-hmm. And your students, I think I have touched on this before. They come from which area of the of Belmont, perhaps going over into Laventille?
Yes, Betham Gardens, as far as Quarry
Right.
Street, Gonzales. Yes.
Right. So you have
We also get children out of Port of Spain.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of children come from out of Port of Spain because their parents work there, and the parents might have gone to the school and they know the quality of teaching that occurs at Gloucester Lodge Moravian. And indeed, we do have wonderful teachers who do excellent jobs at the school.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a lot of people coming back to the school, like Miss Olivia Innes, from when they've graduated and so on, coming back to teach in the school?
Yes, we also have another teacher, Mr. Burgess, and we have children of teachers who are in the school as well.
Right. I'm going to come back to you in a moment to talk about the importance of this anniversary. But let me go to Otto. And your era, your time in the school. How was it?
Well, for me, school was a place that I was not too enthusiastic to go to. I must say.
You're looking at your brother.
But I must commend, it's only when you get older and you reflect and you understand sometimes the things that people were trying to give you, you realize the support and love that you had around you. And going to the school on the anniversary, I was sort of taken aback to a place where I saw the faces, like I know Mrs. Innes would have spoke about Mr. Roll Wright. Mr. Wright was actually my lessons teacher in Standard 4, Standard 5. My mom sent me there, and he was not an easy guy. He was a taskmaster, but he just wanted to see the best in all of us. He saw something in us that we did not see at that time. Because I grew up in a community, and I must say my grandmother was my guardian at that time, because she lived in Gonzales all her life. And she would have given me that opportunity to be part of the church, be part of the school. And, you're in an environment, Mr. Fraser, where you are exposed to different things. But I was shielded by my grandparents. And you question yourself, why I can't do this, why I can't do that. But when you look back, you realize the importance of that guidance. And just going back into the school, and this last week on my visit, looking at the archives, seeing where the school come from. Even I was in Standard 5 when the wing to the back of the school was opened. I was leaving when it was completed, and I think Mr. Wright was retiring around that same time as well. And he played a pivotal role. I could talk for Mr. Anthony John. He was also a really pivotal role. He always encouraged me, in regards of you can put your mind to anything that you want to do. And at that time, I never had any inclination of media, but into secondary school, that is when this inclination for the trust for reading and writing became so important to me, because it was a place where I could have, gone in a space of, mentally I could have immersed myself anywhere, right? Yeah. And there were challenges in the sense of, you're in a community, there are challenges. I don't want to go into challenges, but you can see everything and you can know what is happening. You're seeing the world from a different side of the crucible. And I'm trying to remember names. I know Miss Ann Alves was also, she was also a principal as well, Miss Alves, Miss Stewart. And those were people, jokingly enough, you would see them in school Monday to Friday. And on Sunday, they're in church with you, right? So it was like a other side where you could, if you're given trouble, there could be a side talk. So in the church. And, some of these things came with lickings, but nevertheless, I'm grateful for them. And in regards of my foundation, yes, the school offered a very strong foundation for me, and my nieces and nephews went there as well too. And definitely, it's I can go on and on about where the foundations, about the school offered a really strong foundation, because I could have gone on the other side. It was easy, but the support of the school, and it comes back to the same denominational schools have that edge, and they do, because I had the education, but on Sunday you were sitting next to the same teachers in the same school, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask Mrs. Olivier Innes and the principal, Claudette, governor, to talk about how the school, how the students do in terms of the various exams, both internal exams and the external, what's it called now, common entrance sticks in my mind. That's because of that age. In fact, I was of the exhibition age, even before the common entrance. That tells you how old I am, but we're not going there. Mrs. Olivier Innes and the principal, Claudette, governor, give us an appreciation of how your students have done over the years in terms of the exams, the external exam, which determines, unfortunately, sometimes the future of children.
Can I have Miss Innes go first? Thanks.
Yes, go ahead, Mrs. Innes.
Thank you, Miss Governor. Well, we have some children who rank top among the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. We have through the years, we had a lot of children who passed for convents, secondary schools, 7-year schools. But lately, because of what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago, that with media and social media, children and parents are not invested in children so much anymore. Some people still do, but not as much as before. We had some children who passed for QRC. We had some who passed for secondary schools around Port of Spain and did really well. Well, I can speak for myself. When I was at Gloucester Lodge Moravian and I did the common entrance exam, I went to Success Laventille, and it was a good school then. I think that children can do well anywhere once they have the support of their parents and the community. I think now that people are afraid to say something to a child. Even some teachers now are afraid to speak to children, thinking that they will be afraid of the repercussions that will happen because of who the child is or where the child comes from. I'm really thankful for Gloucester Lodge Moravian, for the teachers that I had, Mr. Wright, Mr. Roel Carrington, Miss Ann Alves, Miss Jennifer Stewart, who steered me and showed me that I could be what I wanted. And I wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to come to give back. And during my time of coming to give back, I always pray that God will impact on somebody's life, a child's life, that they would want to do something that they want to do and be the best at it. Since I'm putting a plug here for a new principal, since she has come on board as principal of Gloucester Lodge Moravian School, she has been trying with us. She's been trying to take us further. Being a Moravian and having vested interest in Gloucester Lodge, she has been trying her best, because Gloucester Lodge is a gem in the pride of the Moravians in Trinidad and Tobago. We are one of 2 existing schools in Trinidad and Tobago now.
Where's the other one?
Our sister school is Lansdowne Moravian. Ms. Governor.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Where's the school?
It's Lansdowne Moravian in Toku.
In Toku?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Lansdowne Moravian is in Lansdowne Village in Toku.
That's interesting. Far apart. I mean, how do you explain that? Or is there an explanation for it?
Well,
maybe Togo close to Tobago and their no, I'm serious. There are lots of Tobagonians who occupy parts of Togo.
yes, Miss Governor may be better able to talk to that. But since Miss Governor has come on board, we are trying to lift the school up again. We are trying to have it to be a beacon in East Port of Spain in Belmont. Because when I was a child, everybody asked, when they see me in my green overall, green and white, they would ask, what school is that? And we had children coming to lessons from all the other schools in Port of Spain, from the St. Rose's, from Sacred Heart. I don't think from Western Boys. I think that is Sacred Heart Boys now. From all over Trinidad, children came to Gloucester Lodge to Mr. Wright for lessons. And I think that now with a principal who gives of a time to be there even on weekends and stuff, try to steer the SEA children further by giving free lessons at times. I think we are on our way up. And
Right.
another thing I want to speak to is Gloucester Lodge being the school, the church, the Moravians being the church who provided school for Africans or Afro-Trinidadians. I can speak to that because as a child, I was an immigrant from St. Vincent because of the 1979 volcano. And Mr. Wright and the Moravian Church were the only ones who took me in.
Okay.
So I am really, really grateful. I'm thankful and I'm happy to be here at Gloucester Lodge to give back.
So you're a Vinci to the bone.
No, I'm not a Vinci to the bone. I know more of Trinidad than I do of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Well, I let me tell you something. My mother was a Vinci, and when she spent 50 and more years in Trinidad, had her children in Trinidad and so on, and she never identified as a Trinidadian. It was Vinci along the line, you know.
But actually, Mr. Fraser, one year when I turned 19 and I went back to St. Vincent for the first time, I met Dimitri Fraser, who said he was your nephew.
That yes, Dimitri is my brother's son. Yeah. Dimitri, yeah. My good nephew. So Vinci blood in me too.
So
yes, Miss Governor, you've got a lot of praise from one of your teachers, saying that you are making a difference. What's driving you?
The children. That's it. I just want to ensure that they get their best due, and that is it. I am there for the best interests of the children and nothing more. And
sorry, where did you teach before?
I was at St. Andrew's Anglican Primary in Tobago.
Okay. And you moved to Sweet Trini.
And you call it that.
Yes, go ahead. I'm talking about the grounding of the students and how they do.
Why I allowed her to speak first is because she would have known the achievements of the children before. I went to the school during COVID, and for me, I do not find that they were excelling the way they should. Hence, she said, I drive them. I do drive them a lot because for me, I blame myself, then the teachers, and then I will blame the children last. I really rarely do, right? Because I am thinking that we can always do more.
Why did you make the move to Gloucester Lodge School, Gloucester Lodge Moravian
in
School?
2020?
Why?
Because as a Moravian, they needed a principal, and I thought it best for me to come and help my own.
Okay.
I came to help out the school.
You consider them your own.
Yes.
I like that. I like that. People must gravitate. You said that you weren't satisfied at the start. Are the students moving in the right direction now, the direction that you would have them move?
They are, but at a slower pace, but I will work at their pace, but they are moving. We are seeing movement. We are seeing improvement, especially in behavior. And that is a wonderful thing, because when behavior change, your attitude towards work will change as well.
Right. And what is the reason for that? Share with perhaps some principals listening and looking. What are the secret remedies being implemented, being instilled in the students?
And what we do is you treat each child as your own. You care, you talk to them on a normal basis. You don't just walk into a classroom and start to teach. You have conversations, even though you can sit on the corridor, you have a chat with the child. You just have normal discussion. Make the children realize that they are interesting to you. And I think that is where we started moving, when we having conversation with these children and moving them. Also, the teaching has changed as well. It's not just you go on the board and start to write, like I said. They are more engaged. We use resources, so you meet the children where they are. And then we implemented a lot of in-house activities as well. There's art competition. There's we did one as well, the spelling bee in-house among the houses. We are doing that. And in addition, we have also been partnering with our sister school, Lansnore, to have activities. So we have family fun days and a lot of other things have been happening.
Mm-hmm. How do you get parents to participate? Or should I ask, are parents really involved at the school with their children?
Most of them are. We get most of them. One of the participate, I must say, when we have our school bazaar, we have prizes for the parents to win. So they'll go after air fryer, or they'll go after something that they might need in their home. So the prizes are more attractive. So we see the parents coming out. We invite the parents when we have career day, they come in. The last time we had when we started the 1:30 thing, we invited them to come to witness. Or Carnival Extravaganza, we asked them to come to be part of the audience as the children parade. So we invite them in to come.
Yeah. I know that certain schools depend on the resources, or put it another way, are blessed by the resources that their parents have. Some of the big schools, a lot of contributions from parents and so on. I say so because my wife was a teacher in one of those good Catholic schools where parents have, I don't want to call it even a school and all of that, but you know the story. Yes. That parents have resources and they invest the resources in the schools. What's the situation with the Gloucester Lodge Moravian?
Most of our parents aren't so lucky, so our school is not that lucky. So what we try to do is to have small fundraisers, and we try to ask corporate businesses out there for donations and such. And we depend on our families and friends as well for a lot of donations.
I hope you go to some of the Black business people in business, so that there's not race talk, This is realities that communities help their own. That is why.
And I must admit, that is true, because the Moravian churches in Tobago have been supporting us quite a lot.
Okay, that's good to hear. How many schools and churches are there in Tobago?
No schools.
No schools.
We have 8 churches. What happened in the 1960s, when the government was building schools, they turned them over to the government. There were 6 schools that we turned over because we believe that we will not have been able to finance them. I don't think the Concord Act was out yet.
Okay.
So they did give them up to the government.
So any of your students come from Moravian parents in Tobago to come to school here?
We had one. Well, she did her SCA and went back to Tobago. I remember one coming from Tobago, and she went back already. But we have Moravian children here in the school, but not much. Maybe just about one handful, but not very much.
All right. I touched on this question before, the discipline of the students in the school. Do you suffer from that kind of what seems to be a national pandemic in certain schools? Children, and I must say that sometimes maybe I'm a male biased person, but I find that girls sometimes outdo the boys in terms of fighting each other and so on and so on. Um, I presume that doesn't happen in your school.
It did, but not on a large scale. And those children that were behaving like that are out. We just have about two, I can tell you honestly, maybe about 2 or 3 children that want to exhibit such behavior. But there's not a teacher on the compound that will allow it. And I already warned, once they do, it's suspension. So the large scale is happening in the secondary school, it's not happening there.
Okay, right. I notice you use that word suspension, which has come under some scrutiny recently, and the whole argument about, some students are suspended and they go on the block with children who are not going to school, period. And therefore, that does not help the situation.
And, well, can I say, Tony, that's above my pay grade? Because
I like that response.
What is supposed to happen, what I hope will happen eventually that the government might see, is that you must cater for suspended students, because we cannot allow children to run amok in the classroom, disrespect a teacher, and they come to the principal office, I give them a pat on the back, and then I send them back to the teacher. I can't see that happening, because it means I will not be supporting my teacher in that case. What I do believe is that there should be a place for the suspended children to go, where there are people there dealing with their behavior and trying to modify their behavior. Because it's the same children that get suspended again and again and again. And I don't think the ministry is taking note of that.
Yeah. What of your complement of school counselors, I think they are called? Do they go into the primary school? I know they go into the secondary schools, but are they in the primary schools? And if they are, do they come sufficiently to make a significant contribution?
We have an in-house social worker.
Okay.
We have a guidance that comes twice a week and a special education that comes once a week. Right? So the social worker is there, but once the children, we have to do paperwork to send forward. It's not like if the child behave once, the social worker will see us, she wants paperwork. Sometimes she might, right? But she needs the referral, when sometimes it's just to speak to the child and find out what may be happening, because not all the time a child acts up, it's something that is continuous. And that is something we need to take note of. Like I said, we also have a close working relationship with the community police. So they also come and give their counseling to the children as well.
All right. We are talking about a school that celebrated 130 years of existence. And, when I saw that story by Otto, I tried to transport my mind back 130 years for a school. The Anglicans and the Catholics and the Presbyterians have come for a long time, but a Moravian school in amongst these big religious bodies and so on, I try to picture the environment in which this school existed and the kind of students. I think that's a fascinating thing for a school of that nature to have lasted for 130 years. Question of where do you go from here? Or before where do you go from here? How have the celebrations been? What have been the features of the celebrations?
Well, the features were, the teachers actually came up with it, having the children dressed as old people or as they would have in that time. And that went over quite well with the children. A lot of them were quite excited. I guess the parents too, because some of them went all out. And we also
actually, to tell Otto, that was the pictures attracted me to the story. I attempted to figure out what was going on here, and so I read the story thereafter. But go ahead.
Thank you so much. And we actually sort of launched it with the graduation, where we had an achievement for the children who would have scored 80% for 2 consecutive terms, and for those who would have shown improvement in their schoolwork. So we started it there, and then we invited a lot of the past teachers and principals to the graduation ceremony, so that we can, tell them about some of the things we intend. So come next term, we want to start with a church service, inviting past, present, everyone, as well as we want to end with a concert, a big concert for the year. So those are 2 of the main things we're looking forward to next term, because we said we'll continue this celebration until it's over.
Mm-hmm. Can I unashamedly, beg for an invitation to come and talk to your students at some point in time? I would love that, really. I don't know what I'll say, but hopefully.
That would be fine. Would you want that this term or next term? You can tell me. So
whenever you determine it to be the best time. Once I could allocate a day, a time, and so on, I would love doing that.
Okay, great.
Over the period. Okay, so we are winding down now. We have come to the end of a very interesting discussion about students and so on. And I'm sure that Otto can support me in this. I think I said a little bit of it at the start, that we in the media, we get big stories, what we call big stories. But then we get these human interest stories, which have far more resonance in the society, amongst people and so on. People want to know about people, especially a school like the Gloucester Lodge Moravian School. I had no business. Incidentally, I am from Belmont, further up in Belmont, Naval Stringberry up there. So Industrial Lane, Sandhurst Street, and so on. I lived, in Port of Spain for a short period of time, but the Naval Stringberry in Belmont. So that, I have frequented the area. I've never gone up the hill. I had no business going up the hill. I didn't know anybody up there. I don't see them flying any kites or spinning any top up there, so I didn't go up there. Those are the things that attracted boys at my age and stage and so on. So that I'm very happy that we have come to talk about a school which caters for a certain social class. Not that I'm sure that you will not refuse entry to Mr. So-and-so son and daughter, but the ones you get, you make the best use of. So we want to thank you very much for coming and talking to us about the school, about the challenges, the achievements, and so on and so on and so on. Anybody with a last word that they want to say, feel free. Otto, reporters are never short of chat, so go ahead.
I didn't want to trump anyone else, so I was playing it safe. Definitely, I just want to say it was a pleasure for me, because sometimes, again, you take things for granted, and going into the school for the 130th anniversary, it sort of reawoken something within me in regards to, my roots, where I came from. And I was having a conversation with my daughter, she's 5 years old, about I said, Daddy's old school, still trying to interpret it, but for me, it really resonated with me a lot. Even seeing the school building still looks the same. And we were having the same conversation with Ms. Governors, like, I from being a boy in short pants and khaki pants and blue shirt, seeing it now as a big man, as an adult, I realized that, listen, we saw it as this big institution, but for me, the school really needs to look at they need to look at a larger space, because the school is in a very dense population. And definitely, I think I would champion the call for a new school, a new location, for the children in that community.
Okay. Well, folks, thank you very much for coming to chat with us this afternoon. And we surely wish the school, the teachers, the students, and the parents all the best going forward. Chalo?
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you very much to all our guests inside this afternoon. It's good to have you all here on New Era TT Radio. Of course, we run of this program tomorrow morning at 8:20 a.m. on newera.ttradio.com. All right, Tony, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Take care, my friend.
Children cannot bring a
happy end. To come from a broken home is a curse. First an inferiority complex, too much emphasis on sex. Police, orphanage and jail only makes them worse. Children must grow in the light of true love, God's precious gift from above. Not knowing better, they're bound to get burned. So